Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh of Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you guys, the 13th of March. And we have a major storm getting ready to move into the central part of the country, providing us with some madness here as the warm side of the system is going to have heavy rain, severe weather, large hail, and an enhanced risk for severe weather, keying in mainly on later tomorrow into tomorrow evening over parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, into northeast Texas. But a large area will potentially have some severe weather over the next few days. And that system's going to slowly make its way down into the Gulf states and southeast and kind of park itself here this weekend. So plenty of rain coming over the next several days. On the cold side of this, we could have a top 10 snowstorm for the Denver and Colorado Springs area. Lots of moisture coming in from the northeast. Colder air settling in is going to provide us with some pretty heavy amounts of wet snow later today and especially tomorrow into the early part of Friday. And some places could pick up over 2 feet of snow out of this, which would be pretty significant. In between the two, we don't talk about it a lot, but we have had a nasty early spring so far in the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. And unfortunately, later today, the risk for wildfires climbs very significantly with low fuels in place. So we do have a very high fire danger across some of the same places that have been dealing with it here in the past couple of weeks. Looking at the larger scale here, this is the nationwide and worldwide satellite. You can kind of see where storms are. North Atlantic Ocean has a storm. Northeast Canada has a storm. Here's our next one cranking in from the Pacific, and that's going to settle into the southwest. And the southern hemisphere is still pretty busy with the tropics. We did have a storm hit Mozambique here a couple of days ago with winds that were close to hurricane strength, 65 to 70 miles per hour. Now that storm is heading back out to sea, turning away from Maputo here, and will be heading out over the southwest Indian Ocean. No threat to land at that point, but it is something worth tracking. If you remember Hurricane or Cyclone Freddy this time last year, came through Madagascar, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, caused some major flooding. This one does not look like it's going to copy it. It's going to be heading out to sea and hopefully staying there, and the name is Filippo. We also have a few cyclones and potential cyclones to track over northern Australia. The one of greatest concern may come close to the northwestern tip here early next week with Category 3 winds. Now, their categories in Australia are different than in the Atlantic and Pacific basins. They climb a little bit quicker, but still a pretty significant storm. So I'll be tracking that for you guys here over the weekend into next week. Closer to home in the U.S., you can see we have moisture building here over parts of the deep south. Let me circle a few features for you guys here so that you can follow along at home. And you can see just a big trough here cutting into the western United States and then ridging over the east. In between the two, we have a bit of a disturbance moving through Texas and Louisiana, bringing some cloud cover. We did have a little bit of stronger storm activity last night over Missouri near Kansas City. That disturbance is tracking through Illinois and fading. And so the ridge is going to build in here and provide us with a surge of warm air across the eastern United States over the next few weeks. Because that ridge is so strong, what's going to happen is this trough that's moving into the west is going to cut off into a cut-off low pressure system and spin around for several days, sending impulses along it up and over the ridge. We call this the Ring of Fire ridge, and where the two air masses clash here, this Gulf air mass and this western air mass, we're going to see that potential for some severe weather across this part of the country here over the next few days. And on the cold side, with this upper low spinning here, you're going to have flow out of the southwest coming through the mountains, providing some Pacific moisture into the Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona Rockies, but colder air at the surface meeting up with it. So where the two kind of come together and converge, we do have that setup for some significant amounts of snow coming over the next several days. So that's what I'm going to be tracking for you guys here. You can see winter storm warnings for much of Colorado, including the Front Range. So our most populous cities in Colorado are under a winter storm warning. Winter weather advisories, watches in the blue and purple surrounding that over parts of Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. And this massive area pink here is a red flag warning from southwest Texas and southeastern New Mexico straight on up into the Oklahoma, Kansas border region here. This is the area we're going to have to watch for some wildfires over the next couple of days, in particular this afternoon and evening, as we have some very low fuel in place here. High fuel for fires, low fuel for moisture, if that makes sense. And out west in California, we do have high wind warnings on the backside of the system over the elevational areas, even in the deserts. we may get battered with some strong wind as well. So keep an eye on things there if you are in those wind areas of favored wind. Here's what's going on. Big trough moving into the west later today. This is the European from weatherbell.com. You can see it's going to dig down into Utah and Nevada here this evening. Fast wind flow out ahead of it out of the southwest, crossing New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. So we're going to keep an eye on this area of orange here as it provides some stronger wind flow. And that's going to advance northeastward up into Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois, Indiana during the afternoon tomorrow. So we've got kind of this first wave that's going to be spreading up through the heartland of the country and moving into the lower Midwest here tomorrow. The upper low actually gets disjointed here. It actually moves back to the southwest. That's where the high winds are in the higher elevations here of California on the backside of this low. Some very powerful wind. But what's also going to happen is we're going to see yet another piece of energy moving up from southwest to northeast here over the Gulf states. You can kind of see that here towards the weekend. And so our front doesn't just cleanly move down through the Gulf Coast and it turns colder. Instead, it gets stuck here and provides us with multiple days of misery, unfortunately, in the Gulf states. At the same time, you've got this huge push of colder air coming down, kind of a late season chill, moving down from the prairies of central Canada into the upper Midwest and the Northeast. So winter not finished yet here over the upper Midwest or the Northeast. You can kind of see this cold does migrate south and east next week. And we have we're going to see a much chillier week across the board here over the eastern U.S. next week. At the same time, this upper low is camping out here, taking an extended vacation, a spring break, if you want to call it that, over the southwest. And it gets stuck there through the entirety of the weekend, even into next week. It finally looks like it lifts out later next week. That's when things could get more active in the south and things should start to warm up. But going to spend the majority of the first week of the NCAA tournament just kind of stuck here in the western U.S. while cold air filters into the north and east. So a nice contrast, if you want to call it nice, from the northern and eastern part of the country staying chilly from this weekend on to the south and west staying active and cloudy, and the Gulf states, unfortunately, not going to benefit from that. Here's a look at the precipitable water. This is moisture in the atmosphere. You can see that moisture does climb here today and tomorrow and surges north and east up to the Lake Michigan region here around lunchtime tomorrow. It eventually makes its way into the Northeast, still pretty dry across the Mid-Atlantic and the South Atlantic states, but the moisture is on its way here. And by the time we get to the end of the week, we do see things increasing, and nobody wants a wet weekend, but we've got that possibility here from many places here in the South and in the Southeast. The Northeast will turn drier and colder. You see this push of drier, chillier air coming down. But we will eventually see some moisture building back up for Sunday. And then a much chillier look and much drier look as we get to the first half of next week, with more rain, more moisture coming up the eastern seaboard towards the end of next week. If you set your clock for the weekend, you know it's going to rain in the eastern U.S. It's just kind of the pattern we are stuck in. Here's a look at the lightning potential out of this system. And you can see things are going to start to blossom later today in a few areas, one across the south central states, the other back across the Four Corners region. We're dealing with snow, but we may see some lightning out there as well. And then things get very active tonight from Kansas over into Indiana, maybe southwestern Michigan. And then tomorrow looks to be our most active day. Take a look at the density of lightning here. And I can zoom in to show you a little bit more here. Just a second, I'll get that for you guys here, south central states. And you can see it could be a pretty active afternoon as we have a dry line feature setting up just west of the Metroplex near Oklahoma City all the way into southeast Kansas. And then as the day wears on and into the evening hours, still quite a few storms. So expect some travel delays here tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. I'm flying to Dallas tomorrow night. I'm not excited about that, but I'm doing it. And here's a look at Friday. You can see that front push is south and kind of lingers south of the Metroplex through central Texas, through northern Louisiana, through central and northern Mississippi. And more storms as we get to Friday night on the Gulf Coast. And we're going to see more of that on Saturday. And finally, by Sunday, this storm system pushes out of the south central U.S. and heads into the southeast. And here's a look at that. Going back here towards Friday, not a terrible day, but Friday we could see a few pop-up storms up into the Shenandoah Valley, into northern Maryland, eastern Kentucky. I don't think we're seeing severe weather, but we certainly could see some heavier storms. Better chances for storms across parts of the southeast here as we get to Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. And then rinse and repeat here for Sunday, Florida up to South Georgia, into the eastern Carolinas here for Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. Looks a lot like last Saturday did, to be honest with you guys, although probably not as much severe weather. And then still some chances for storms across parts of Central and South Florida on Monday. But overall, it's going to be a much cooler, much drier look by the time we get to next Tuesday and Wednesday in the Southeast. So I got to move forward here fast. Here's a look at the projected radar over the next 60 hours. This is a NAM model. You can see our snow building over Wyoming and Colorado. Rain and storms over the nation's midsection tonight and tomorrow. More storms firing up tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night along the Ohio River. We are going to see a little bit of snow moving across the North Country here of New England here later tomorrow night, and especially early in the day on Friday. It could even snow all the way down to Augusta, Portland, Maine, maybe not far from Dartmouth, New Hampshire, but that'll move out by Friday afternoon, so only about a 6-hour snowfall, and then it dries out and will turn wet across the mid-Atlantic region. Here's a look at our risk for severe weather today. Slight risk over the center of the country. You can see that zoomed in here. Kansas City kind of in the bullseye here. I think it's mainly later today into this evening. There will be a chance for some tornadoes in here as well, especially in the area in Brown, a 5% chance for tornadoes. A bigger risk of some severe wind, 15%, all the way up to Lincoln, Nebraska, and into southwestern Iowa in places like Lamoni. I think that's right. And then severe hail. That's going to be our biggest factor that we need to be concerned with here later this afternoon into this evening. Large hail will be possible, especially in this hatched area, including St. Joe's, Missouri, Kansas City, Olathe, Topeka, Manhattan, Kansas, maybe even all the way as far east as Columbia, Missouri overnight tonight. Tomorrow, though, should be our most active day. We now have an enhanced risk. I'll zoom down and show you Arkansas in a minute, but a slight risk close to Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, and Des Moines, and on south and east. I know somebody asked me a few days ago what the weather in Iowa looked like, and I said there may be some thunder. I don't think there's going to be severe weather. Well, this track has shifted a little bit farther north. So for the person who asked, Iowa apology to you in Iowa. All right, that's a bad joke. Tornado risk as well, 2%. Don't sleep on tornado chances. They'll be a little bit higher in the enhanced risk, but we may see a couple of tornadoes in here. I don't think it's going to be a major outbreak. Severe wind, also a potential problem here across this entire region, all the way into central Illinois and perhaps into Indiana as well. But I think the biggest story from this storm isn't necessarily the incredible wind shear, because I don't think that's the big deal. I think what we're going to have to deal with is more instability and more potentially large hail. So if you have vehicles in this area, or if you live on a farm and have animals, make sure you have a way of getting them into a safe spot here tomorrow. Best chance is going to be in the afternoon across this part of the area, and then towards the evening down through the Ozarks region and farther south. And here's a look at that enhanced risk as well in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Slight risk all the way down to Waco, Texas, and Shreveport, Louisiana towards evening. Chance for tornadoes along the Red River up to Fort Smith, Fayetteville, all the way over close to Searcy, Arkansas. Severe wind threat as well from the Metroplex on north and east. And hail is going to be our potentially biggest problem from the Metroplex on up towards Gainesville, Texas, Paris, North Texarkana, Hot Springs, McAllister, Fort Smith, Fayetteville, all the way into north central Arkansas. Maybe even some hail all the way close to the Mississippi River here early in the morning on Friday. It'll probably be after midnight Thursday night. Big fire risk today. Extremely critical conditions expected around Amarillo to near Perryton, Texas, and up to Woodward, Oklahoma, Childress as well. And surrounding that, we have just a general area we've got to be concerned with for some wildfires. Winds out ahead of this system will be ripping later on. The humidity will be very low. Temperatures are going to warm up into the 60s and 70s this morning and into the 80s this afternoon in some of these areas. So we do need to definitely be concerned about that fire risk. As we head towards Friday and Saturday, the overall threat for severe weather does lower, but the threat for heavy rain starts climbing as these storms just kind of sit and storm on the same place. So another week or weekend looks like we're going to see at least a couple of inches of rain, but certainly some potential stronger storms. Maybe just north of Houston on Friday afternoon and Friday night, Lake Charles, Alexandria, Jackson, Meridian, Birmingham, Selma, Montgomery, all the way over to Coweta County here in Georgia for Friday. Right now, we don't have an outlook for severe weather on Saturday, but I do think if we have severe weather on Saturday, where did my cursor go? Good Lord, help me today. There it is. Y'all can't see what I can see, but I can't see it either today. But as we get to Saturday, I think we've got to be concerned with this area in here for some potential severe weather. And then Sunday, I think our risk is more confined to this area, and then Monday across this area. But I think with each day, you see somewhat of a lesser risk for severe weather as the wind flow aloft isn't going to be quite as strong. There you can see that 5% risk for Friday. And this could grow. We could have a slight risk as well. Here's a look at our tornado ingredients. Again, not super impressed with the tornado potential, but there will be some. This is going to be late this afternoon. You can see it climbing towards this evening. I don't think we're going to see tornadoes west of Oklahoma City. The shear is high, but the instability is not there. There's going to be a cap that's in place. But we have to keep an eye on this part of our system here. That's where we may have to deal with some tornadoes later on this evening and overnight tonight. Tomorrow, you'll see a pretty decent area as well that starts to build, not so much in the morning, but as we head towards the afternoon and especially the evening, we do have to watch the St. Louis area. We've got to watch the Ozarks. We've got to watch eastern Oklahoma all the way back to the Red River for that potential. Here's a look at what the radar could look like here. This is the RRFS model, a short range model that kind of specializes in this. And not a lot going on this morning, but we'll see storms firing up later today and especially this evening over northern Kansas and Missouri, and then moving up into southeastern Nebraska, into south central and southeastern Iowa late tonight, and then more storms expected to fire up tomorrow here. You can kind of see there's going to be a lull in the action, and then late in the day, the cap breaks, and we see additional storms popping up. The areas that are bounded here have the best chance for supercell type storms with hail, strong winds, and maybe even a tornado or two. There's also an area to watch in southwest Arkansas during the evening hours, and then this is going to move south and eastward and out of the area by Friday. Here's a closer look at Missouri real fast. I suggest that you just pause things if you want to take a closer look, because I need to keep moving here. But here's a look at tonight, and then things move out here in the morning tomorrow, and then late afternoon into the evening, things are going to blow up again. According to this model, Joplin to Columbia to St. Louis, all under the gun. And that risk continues into the early overnight hours by Friday morning, and then that should move away. Here's a look at Iowa as well. I don't want to ignore you guys in Iowa. And you can see, we'll see some storms moving in late tonight and maybe some severe weather towards the Missouri border and the Illinois border here overnight tonight. Tomorrow, though, we get kind of a lull and then a few more storms we have to keep an eye on. But I think they're mainly going to be south and east of you as the colder air filters in here before Friday morning. I don't want to ignore Indiana or Ohio. I don't think you guys are going to be in the best chance of seeing severe weather, but I do think you've got to have your head on a swivel. Late tonight, places like Terre Haute and Bloomington, Indiana, and Santa Claus, Indiana, but more so tomorrow afternoon and especially tomorrow night. Here's a look at what's going to move through Indianapolis tomorrow afternoon. Fort Wayne under the gun. That wave heads into Ohio and falls apart. Another wave, though, takes aim at the I-70 corridor later in the evening and especially overnight across southern Indiana. And I do think we could have a few storms turn severe across this, and certainly some heavy rain as well. The risk for severe weather is lower across Kentucky and Tennessee. I'll show this to you guys here. Again, pause it if you want to see the timestamp in the Northwest. I don't have time to go hour by hour in every part of the country. I wish I did, but we would never get done with this. And I got to move on here. But here's a look at tomorrow night. And you can see storms moving down to Louisville, Lexington, Huntington, West Virginia, and sneaking down towards Nashville and Knoxville here during the overnight hours tomorrow night. And there will be some severe weather potential with this, albeit not as great as to your neighbors to the north and west. Here's a look at Arkansas. This area is definitely going to get hit hard over the next few days. Lots of storms, lots of hail, and maybe a few tornadoes in here. Not so much tonight, but as we head into tomorrow night, that's when I think our chances are going to be at their greatest. Here's a look at why. More to talk here. West of Hot Springs, Mina around 10 o'clock tomorrow night. And then really the nasty stuff moves in overnight tomorrow night. You can see kind of multiple supercells here. There'll be some flood potential as well. And this threat continues beyond 7 a.m. on Friday morning Central Time. Here's where our dry line is going to set up. And this is an interesting feature here because there's a very moist air mass building northward here from Texas into Oklahoma. You can see the dry line does shift east and makes its way near Oklahoma City. West of this, we've got an extreme fire danger. Why? Well, winds are going to be ripping at 30 to 40 miles per hour and dew points drop into the 20s. So if you light that cigarette and toss it off on 40 into a very dry ground, that fire can spread very quickly. So I highly recommend not doing that. And it's not good to litter anyway, to be honest, but that's going to cause anything like that can very quickly trigger a quickly growing brush fire. So we definitely not need to be doing that today. Farther east, though, where this dry line sets up is going to be the focus for potentially a few storms. And right now, the best dynamics are west of the area with the best moisture. They don't quite line up for a major severe weather outbreak. So we're not going to see strong tornadoes in Oklahoma City with dew points in the 40s. It just isn't going to happen. Farther east, we definitely have that richer moisture, but we don't quite have the dynamics. They're a little bit too far to your west. So the setup isn't that great today, but as we head back into the late evening hours tonight, you see the moisture does return. And as we get into the day on Thursday, there's more moisture in place. So I think tomorrow is going to be the day if you're storm chasing in eastern Oklahoma. As you can see, much more moist day than today. And then we'll dry it out and turn much cooler as this front drops south here early in the day on Thursday. And here's a look at what's going to happen in Oklahoma. Again, not super exciting for the day today. Maybe something pops up tonight, but tomorrow is going to be our day here to see potential severe weather. And I think it's going to be mainly just east of Oklahoma City, Tulsa, McAllister, and down to the Red River region. Speaking of the Red River, here is Texas. And I think we're going to be pretty good here today. We may see a storm or two. I would not rule that out. I think tomorrow, though, is our better chance to see weather. You could see some showers popping up in the afternoon, and it's conditional at this point if we're going to see widespread severe weather or not. This model says there's only going to be a couple of storms where that could possibly happen. It's not going to be a massive line of storms tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. That gives me hope if I'm flying into Dallas tomorrow night. But you can see there'll be more rough weather as we head into Friday, especially south and east of the Metroplex. Snow is the other issue here. Big time snow out here in the Rockies. I'm going to zoom in and show that to you in just a minute. Lighter snow across northern New England, northern New Brunswick, southeast Quebec, and a decent storm as well moving into the prairies here over the weekend. But here's a look at what piles up in Colorado. And it's been a while since you guys have been mentioned on my channel, and I apologize, but take a look at this. We are going to see some snow developing this afternoon back in the Rockies and then building into the Front Range tonight. And tomorrow morning is when the snow piles up at its heaviest near Denver, and even continuing into tomorrow night around Castle Rock and Parker down to Colorado Springs. And here's a look at the model average. And it shows about a foot in Denver, but almost 2 feet around Castle Rock and Parker. And some places in here have that potential to see maybe over 4 feet of snow, 50 inches showing up here. So my forecast is 2 to 3 feet near the Front Range and on west, but the higher elevations, of course, are going to pick up more. And that's going to shut down the Eisenhower tunnel here as things get extremely bad here later in the day tomorrow. You can see the winter weather impacts are extreme. That's the area purple just west of Denver. Denver is right here. And that area is in red, which is a high chance of winter weather impacts that'll shut down roadways and snarl travel. But in the mountains to the west, as you could probably imagine, that's where things get a lot worse. So that's what I'm going to watch for you guys here in the next couple of days. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a video in tomorrow, to be honest. I will try, but I need to get moving here. Temperatures real quick. Very mild across the east. Spring fever for many of us. But here comes the cold weather as we get towards the weekend. You see the front's going to drop down. And by the weekend, we are back into the 30s and 40s across the Midwest. This is Sunday afternoon. Teens and 20s over central Canada. Still mild on the Gulf states, but cooler across Texas. And next week, we continue to drop those temperatures here. Take a look at some of these morning temperatures in Canada. Not done with winter yet, with sub-zero temperatures expected. Here's the longer range just to show you guys what I'm looking at. And by the weekend, and especially next week, we are much below average across the central and eastern U.S. So certainly don't start planning things yet, unless maybe you're in central or south Florida. But as we head into April, it still looks like it's going to be below average for much of the month here. Take a look at around tax day and on into Earth Day here in mid-April. We are still well below average, meaning some frost potential in the mornings, even down into parts of Georgia and Alabama and northern Florida. Later in April into May, we may see some moderation, but again, we're getting pretty far out in the future. Thank you all so much for your time today. I hope you have a blessed day. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and sharing with your friends as I work to grow my channel here. I'm not going to be able to do something every single day, and I apologize. My schedule is just way too hectic. I've got a lot of things on my plate, a lot of travel, but if there is major weather, I will certainly make a post on my community page, or you can follow me on Facebook as well, Josh the Severe WX, as I share some of that important information with you all. Anyway, you guys have a great day. I give all the glory to God because He is my strength. He is my encouragement, and He gives me the strength to do this every day and to share the good news with you guys. Paul tells the Church of Rome, Romans 1:16 and 17, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith." And I think that's very important because a lot of us believe a lot of different things, and I respect that. But there should be no shame in sharing what you believe, and God has called me to share my faith with you. And that's the good news, that Jesus Christ is coming again. He is here to save those of us who believe and choose to believe in him. And he has also called us to share that good news with everybody else. And that is what I'm doing. It's fulfilling God's promises, because he has promised me eternal life through his son, Jesus Christ. And that is the good news I wanted to share with you all today. Hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll catch up soon. God bless.